everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or tea or whatever your pleasure and sit back and let's talk about the astrology of the day. I really don't have a lot for you today, although I say that and then it turns out that I have a lot to say. So let's just go with the flow, right? Let's see what's going on. Yesterday, I told you that it was a loaded day. And what I meant by that is that it was possibly going to be one of the more emotional days of the week. Nothing like predicting your own issues, right? I had what I described to my husband as a horrible day. In reality, it's not that it was horrible. It's that, sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off. It's not that it was a horrible day. It was just, everything that I could tell you about yesterday happened to me yesterday. Moody. I was down at the bottom of my emotional wave for practically the entire day. And then by evening, I was like so done. I was on I was on a website putting together a resume to go find a job because I had just gone there with my whole thinking about what I do in my world and how I am supported by that or not supported by that. And this was a pattern. Thank God I know human design. Thank God. Because I knew better than to take any action. Because I knew I was at the bottom of my emotional wave, or how, for whatever reason that happened. I recognized the pattern from about 9 years ago, which, by the way, is a cycle of the Black Moon Lilith. Wash, rinse, and repeat, right? And every 9 years, she comes through a new sign. And at that time, 9 years ago, I actually did make one of the biggest mistakes of my life. And that was I gave up my astrology practice and I went to work. I literally forced my way into a job at T-Mobile. They do, what do they call them? Group interviews there. And you're just supposed to show up and you get in line and you put your name on a list and then they do this group interview. So I show up early. I'm fourth in line. And so my name is up at the top of the list. And then they have us all go sit down, in a waiting room, waiting for our turn. And I sat there and I waited. And I waited some more. And then I waited some more. And then I realized that people were going in who came in after I did. And I was like, what is up with that? So about an hour and a half later, I go up to the front desk and I say, I've been waiting for a very long time to talk to somebody. And the lady looks at me and she goes, well, can't you see there's a lot of people? I said, well, yes, I do see that. But I was fourth in line here today. And she goes, oh. And she proceeds to look up, on this piece of paper and she sees my name and she's like, wow, okay, well, I'm so sorry we missed your name. You'll have to wait until we get through some of the other people and I'll try to work you in. And I went, you know what? Forget it. Is there a way what were we going to do in this interview? She said, well, you were going to take a test. And I said, is there a way for me to take the test online? And she said, yes. So I said, okay, just give me the information and I'll do it when I get home. So I did. And, literally the universe is putting up a stop sign and I still ignore it, right? I ignore that stop sign. It eloquently showed me this wasn't the right place, or, without putting a sign in front of me that said, no, turn back. So I end up pushing my way into this job. And almost immediately, I regret it. I'm in my car in the afternoons at my lunch hour crying because I know I've made the wrong decision. And I think I lasted there about 4 months before I just quit and went back to my astrology practice. So I recognized the signs, right? I recognized the signs yesterday. It didn't make it feel any better. Trust me, it did not make me feel better. It didn't make me feel any better at all. And I was ready to throw over my life and my livelihood, and take a walk on another, on a side trip that I had already taken. But through human design, I was able to see what was happening. I saw what was happening. I could feel what was happening. And rather than taking action on things that I know better than to take action on, I was able to sit through it. It didn't it was like sitting on a pity potty. It didn't feel good. It was hot yesterday here too. For us here in Washington, it was hot. And that didn't make things any better. And yet I survived. I survived without sending out resumes for jobs I had no intention of taking. I didn't make any big decisions. I just kind of stuck with whatever it was I was feeling. By this morning, I feel a whole lot better. And I feel empowered for having been able to, not on my own, by the way. I have talked to a couple of friends in between times, trying to pull me back from that brink. And that's exactly, what we need to do. We need to look to our people that support us when we're about to make these big decisions. And to remember, if you don't know your human design, find out your human design. You need to know what your authority is. When we do the next class, which by the way now is August 23rd, I'm going to write myself a note to start putting that out there at 4 p.m. Pacific time, because I forgot I had to take my grandson to a doctor's appointment on the 16th. So I just moved it out a week. So it'll still be on Thursday, the 23rd. We're going to be talking about the centers. So all of those wonderful shapes, the 9 energy centers. But if you haven't listened to the previous recording that we did for the basics of human design, your 3 keys to unlocking the power of your human design, your type, your strategy, and your authority, then re-listen to that. I might post that link up here again today. I forgot that. I think was a paid workshop. Oh, I'll have to check that because I wouldn't want to put it out there for free when people probably paid for that. So I'll take a look at that. But if nothing else, get your own chart, get your own reading, so you know what it is that is your pathway to making proper decisions, okay? Because so many times the energies of the planet put pressure on us to make decisions. And those aren't always decisions that support us, or they're not always the decisions that we would make if we were in our right minds. I hope you guys can hear me. I just moved my mic closer. I'm out of sorts today, kind of like off my kilter. Good morning, Mimi. So glad you are here with us. Thank you, sweetie. April, good day, ladies and gents. Happy Thursday. Michelle sends love and kisses. Good morning to all of you. And I neglected to tell all of you this yesterday because we got into such a wonderful discussion about Pallas Athene, but the moon is void of course today. And it started at 4:21 a.m. Pacific time this morning. So that would be 7:21 for those of you on the East Coast, lasting throughout the entire day until 9:18 p.m. my time tonight, when the moon will move out of Cancer, thankfully, and into Leo, where she then prepares for the new moon at 18 degrees Leo, which also happens to be a partial solar eclipse on Saturday, the 11th. So we'll be talking about some of that today. I want to wish my son Wesley a very happy birthday. I love you much. And I know sometimes you watch me in the morning, and I've already talked to you anyway, but just know my heart is with you today. And he is my 28-year-old son. He turns 28 today. And that means he's at the brink of his first Saturn return, which means that he was born on the brink of my first Saturn return. He and his younger brother, who is younger than him by 1 year, he was a surprise. Both were born in my Saturn return, one as I was moving into it and the other as I was moving out of it. And isn't that interesting? I'm getting ready to move into, well, at least in the next year, into another Saturn return. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. So Wesley, I wish you happiness and love and joy for the year. And I will be doing your chart for you at some point here, maybe next weekend. Okay, so let's take a look, which, by the way, if the moon is in void of course today, which it is, means we don't have any real new transits of the moon to talk about. The moon early this morning, just before it turned to void, was in an opposition to Pluto. So that does sort of leave us with a very powerful transformative energy for the day, where anything that has been in the background of your life can actually be transformed. I'm looking forward to using that energy today as I meet with my own personal coach about taking my business in a new direction or figuring out what that direction is. So use that energy today, right? Whatever it is that's been dogging you, whatever it is that you want to open up to with the solar eclipse is a new project or is a new you. Do some work on that today, right? Allow the energy of the moon in an opposition to the powerful planet Pluto to help you transform, transmute, regenerate the energies or the situation in your life. That's what I'm doing. Late in the evening, after 9:18 p.m., once the void is done, the moon will be in an opposition to Mars as it moves into 0 degrees of Leo, and Mars is sitting at, let's see, today, 0 degrees 42 minutes of Aquarius. So we have some powerful action steps in our morning wake up tomorrow, and possibly born out of the energies of empowering yourselves today. It doesn't mean that it's time for you to take some heavy duty action steps forward, but the potential is there. The pathway is in front of you, and perhaps even having been laid out by some of the steps you take today. I love that. Let's see, Michelle, thanks for the heads up on the void of course moon. You're most welcome. Don't beat your head up against the wall today. Try to do all kinds of other things. Don't start anything new. Don't expect that anything that does happen to pop up today is going to last for any length of time. You know, I had an interesting discussion with my daughter the other day because she was at a wedding on Tuesday. Tuesday was the last void of course moon. And I was concerned that this couple was beginning their life together as a married couple in a void of course moon. And she said, but Mom, they're so in love. And I went, yes, they are. But somehow marriage sometimes changes things and changes people. So I'm kind of watching as a test subject, if you will, of what happens when something like a marriage is undertaken in a void of course moon. So I'll keep you posted on that. Carmel, all sounds fab. Massive movement in our lives so far. Yeah, massive movement. Not comfortable movement either, sometimes, right? So today I want to take us back to our conversation about Pallas Athene, because this morning I was looking for some really good information about where it is we can find her in our charts. I thought maybe because she's further out that she lasts in a sign for a greater period of time, and that I could give you, like 1961 to 1980, she was in blank sign, but I couldn't find anything like that today. But I did find the date that she was discovered. And it's important to note that when a planet is discovered and her name or his name is given, it usually is born out of the maybe unconscious or subconscious energies that are birthing on the planet at that moment in time. So if she was discovered on March 28th, 1802, what was happening at that time? That would lead us to believe that there was probably a powerful women's movement under an undercurrent moving through the women's movement. And I bet if we looked that up, we would find that we were looking at the time of the suffragettes, perhaps, or maybe we were looking at a time where women were working to get the vote, or it was in the works where women were empowering themselves to become the masculine equal. And in a way, it might have even been a time where women began to exert some masculine principles and masculine characteristics out there in the world, which would have been different than what had been expressed through the feminine up until that point. She was discovered at 0 degrees Libra. 0 degrees Libra. Guess where she will be in November? She will be at 0 degrees Libra. So there's something big going on in the reason why she is being thrust into our consciousness at this point in time. Because whenever a planet comes back to the point it was discovered, it's almost like its new moon phase, right? It is its new phase and the new expression of who she is running through our collective or through our consciousness. So you might expect that we're going to see a new level of the divine feminine claiming her power and claiming her strength and courageously moving outward in the world in a new way, not just in the feminist way, sometimes that pendulum swings a little bit to the absurd before we get back to the, normal. And, we swang. Yes, I was born English, with the English language. We moved from this one place where we were completely kowtowed. We were completely dominated over by the masculine. And then we swung through that balance point and went all the way to the other end, where in the 60s and 70s, there was this, and even into the 80s, this feminist movement that I think went a little bit over the top. And now we're in that process of coming back down to that more even point, that balance or harmonious point that Venus epitomizes for us, right? She epitomizes the energy of harmony and of bringing things into a balance, the masculine and the feminine. So with Pallas moving into that 0 degree mark, the place that she was discovered at, I would imagine that the relationship, because Libra is a relationship sign, the relationship between masculine and feminine takes on a new mask, a new phase in its attempt to become balanced partners in the world. So I also found out something new today, something I'd never heard before. Imagine that. That 0 degrees Libra is sitting very close to something called the supergalactic center. Galactic center, one of my favorite topics. How did I not know that there was a supergalactic center sitting right about 2 degrees of Libra in the galaxy M87? More on that, because that just came to my attention like 5 to 7 minutes, I think, before we went live this morning. So it requires more research on my part. A supergalactic center, what does that mean? Apparently, well, we already know a galactic center, or a black hole, is a very powerful place of destruction and rebirth. So it's very much like the goddess Kali, or Shiva, I think it is, that is the masculine form of this transformation of death and destruction and rebirth and regeneration. So more on this in 2 degrees of Libra. What can that mean for us all, right? I don't know. So wherever 2 degrees Libra sits in your astrology chart is where this supermassive black hole is occurring. I don't know that it makes much difference in your chart unless you have planets sitting there, or maybe in opposition to it, or in some other way, in aspect to it. But isn't that interesting, right? Something new, something fun for me to take a look at. So more on that. So I pulled a chart quickly this morning for the discovery of Pallas Athene, because I wanted to know what other planets were in play at the time. Well, she was discovered when there was a conjunction of the planet Uranus. So she jumps out into the world in a very powerfully awakening sort of way. The planet Uranus was at 4 degrees of Libra, and she was discovered when she was at 0 degrees of Libra. So there's an interesting connection here to her as being an awakener, as, shaking up things. And it seems that the goddesses have been launched into our awareness through the planet Uranus. It was the same thing that sort of happened with the planet Eris, right? Or the asteroid Eris. She was in a conjunction with Uranus throughout the late part of 2015, at various points through 2016 and 2017. And she still hangs fairly close to the planet Uranus even today. Remember, she's the goddess of discord. And Pallas is not so much discord, but strength. And by the way, I found out in her symbol, the diamond represents a spear. A spear, right? Maybe sort of like the Sagittarian arrow that's ready to pierce the heart of something. The spear maybe as a representation of feminine power, of domination over the, can I say that? Domination of the masculine principle within. I mean, the spear is fairly phallic in its representation, and she's got a hold of it. I could make a lot of jokes right now. I'll refrain. So, at any rate, it does be... Oh, God. Oh. Never mind. But it does show our taking back power and strength from the masculine, embracing the masculine within us. Oh, Lord, I'm going to give it. Okay. So, beautiful morning, ladies. We'll watch later on my way to my cousin's graduation. Just wanted to say hello. Have a blessed day. Thank you, Suzanne. That's really sweet. Have a blessed day yourself. Enjoy the graduation. I wonder what kind of graduation is happening in August. That's awesome. Michelle Gay, good morning. Okay, so I pulled myself together here. Let's take a look now at what the information that we're going to be gleaning from the eclipse is. Tomorrow's Friday. Unbelievable. This week has just sort of flown by. And that means we're still, we're in this doorway. We are standing at the threshold, if you will, of the eclipse coming up on Saturday. And it is perfectly timed for us then to take a look at some of the things that will be happening. So hold on, I'm going to do something really quickly here. I want to show you some major configurations. And my pen is kind of running out of ink here. I'm going to try to make it dark. So hopefully you guys can see this. Yeah, it shows up pretty good. So what you're looking at here is a yod. A yod that is probably the most highly energetic aspect, disturbing aspect in all of astrology. And it is an isosceles triangle. If you remember back to your geometry days, the point of that triangle happens to be looking right at the Leo eclipse, right at the sun, the moon, Mercury, and Pallas, while the base, the supporting base, is at the planet Neptune on one end and over here at the planet Pluto. So we have a I'm glad this is a partial solar eclipse. God, if this was a total one, I think we might have had a lot of exits from the planet during that window. So the partial solar eclipse, because this is so highly energetic, the yod is made up of the planet at the point. The planets, in this case, at the point, are the release of all of the energy. So we're releasing through the gateway of the eclipse. So through this Leo gateway at around 18 degrees of Leo. And we're releasing then at the new moon. So we're releasing releasing baggage. Who was it yesterday? Somebody yesterday I was talking to had a very profound dream. And the dream was that it was a woman too. She was leaving baggage behind, like she was traveling somewhere, but she kept leaving her baggage behind. And she kept trying to get back to her baggage, but things were preventing her from getting back to that baggage. So I thought that was a perfect metaphor for this particular new moon solar eclipse, because we have a lot of baggage, a lot of stuff hanging back here that's holding us back, weighing us down, creating stress and pressure on us. And this is a gateway for us to let go of that, to release it, to leave the baggage in the past where it belongs. And the nozzle pointing at the new moon then telling us to move in a new direction. And that new direction is a Leo direction. It is a direction that is aligning us with our heart and our desires. And that just reminded me to take a look perhaps at, can I find that book really easily? Yes. Sometimes, and I've used it a few times with people individually, I look up the Sabian symbol. Sabian meaning Sabian, I don't remember what that word means, but this is a Dane Rujar, an astrological mandala. What it is a degree in the zodiac has an actual energy associated with it. So I'm going to look up 18 Leo because I don't think I've looked that up yet. And let's see what that particular degree means for us. Maybe we did look at this or maybe I've read this before. So it's called the energy at the gate, or the energy for the sun, the moon, is a houseboat party. The enjoyment of temporary freedom from rigidly structured social behavior. This symbol, in a sense, duplicates the one for 12 Leo, except that it implies a less conventional and more youth-oriented type of gathering. The houseboat brings an intimacy and a bohemian character to the relationships between the participants, while the evening lawn party reflects a more socially respectable and superficial kind of interaction between middle-class sophisticates. So essentially, without going through the rest of this, who has houseboat parties today? This book was probably written in a long time ago. 70s maybe, 1973. That's the copyright date, but it was based on information that's much older. But this is the stage of release. So we are releasing through the gateway of the new moon, through the eclipse, through finding our strength, finding our wisdom, finding our inner masculine, and moving forward. We don't have a choice here. I think it's more uncomfortable to stay where you are than it is for you to move on. And the base of this particular setup for us is at Neptune, taking on our spiritual higher self, and Pluto daring to allow that transformation to occur, right? Restructuring your life. Pluto in Capricorn about restructuring, reformulating, reformatting, rebuilding, regenerating. Neptune about listening to the higher self, listening to your intuition, and nozzle pointed at the change occurring through this particular eclipse. When you look at a yod, it's all about adjust, sacrifice, release. Adjust, sacrifice, release. Rinse and repeat, right? Just adjust, sacrifice, release. So sacrifice in this case doesn't mean letting go of something near and dear. It means letting go of those sacred cows, right? Those things that you've held onto that are really mere baggage. The baggage, right? Letting go of the baggage. So a very highly energetic eclipse, thankfully partial. There's also a mystic rectangle. Let me take a moment and highlight where that is in here. Let's see if orange will work. The mystic rectangle, when it shows up, shows us that there's a much bigger picture to what's happening, right? The base of that isn't so much engaged. It's actually the base of it is pointing at the north node, destiny. What direction are you moving in? What is your life path trajectory? The other end of the base is at Venus, who's just moved into Libra. That addresses our relationships. The other point, top right point, is at the at the black moon Lilith. Hallelujah. Dealing with the shadow and empowering ourselves. And the other point is at Chiron. Chiron in Aries. So how do we express the whole totality of who we are? How do we express the unique qualities of you, of me in the world? So we have an interesting mystic rectangle here calling us on to bigger and better things, but with the nozzle pointed at the eclipse, there are some things that you have to release first. And it almost feels then like there's a delay, a space, an in-breath of time for us to be able to work through those things, to let go of those things so that we can be open to something new. And remember, a lot of the planets are still retrograde up until the 18th. You know, we have 7 of them in retrograde. So we're still working on the inner planes. One by one, those planets, first Mercury, then Mars, then Saturn, turn back to forward motion. That is after the eclipse. So there's breathing space for us to really get clarity on where it is that we want to go. What is the baggage that we have to leave behind? So this, even though it's a partial, is a very powerful window for all of us. Very powerful. Let's see if people have questions. Mimi says, interesting, Pallas will be strong near our November election. Oh, definitely. You're right. Absolutely. What is the day? I didn't look at, hold on. I actually had this book all along, Asteroids in the Birth Chart. I'm a book whore. I have all kinds of books. And then suddenly a book like this will jump out at me and go, oh, I had this at my fingertips all along. So if I look at this, I can probably get the date. 2018, November, 0 Libra. It doesn't give me dates. It just says November. So my guess is for most of the month of November, because in December she's at 13 Libra. So she'll be moving between 0 and 13 degrees of Libra during the election. And if that doesn't spell women jumping into politics, by the way, Pallas Athene rules politics. I didn't talk about that yesterday, but she has a very distinct connection to politics. And there was something I read here this morning about her. Oh, that's a chart example. Hold on. Let me go back here. Pallas came to be considered the intercessor between the people and the government, thereby personifying the power of the intellect and a connection to politics. Pallas, the goddess of wisdom, women in an election year where it's already been said in the popular press many times that this was the year of the woman in power. So I think that's quite eloquent in its astrological connotations, right? We can also, at some point, take a look at people's charts and see where your own Pallas is, because she's going to show you where it is that you're needing to be empowered. We know she's in Leo right now. So wherever Leo is in your chart is where you're really moving to claim or reclaim that masculine principle within yourself, right? Blending the masculine with the feminine within to become whole, to be the whole expression of who you're here to be. But by birth, she was in a different sign, likely. So it might behoove you to take a look at your chart and see where Pallas was by birth. For me, she was in Pisces. So this book actually happens to explain. It didn't quite sit right with me, so I'm going to have to look at it from an intuitional sort of place for myself. But Pallas in Pisces responds to religious experiences or ceremonies with reservation. They are concerned with the emotional impact on their free will or ego. Psychic abilities, if present, are directed to practical expressions or into daily concerns. Joy to these natives is accomplishment without having to experience the anxieties of failure. Maybe it is more me than I thought. Music is the only portion of worship they allow themselves to experience, thus they avoid the deeper involvement which these people consider impractical. That's funny, because I used to say the only reason I went to church was for the songs, the music. I used to love to sing in the choir. That was the reason I went to church. That's funny. So maybe it does have more meaning to us or to myself than I thought. At any rate, that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll take a look at more information about the eclipse and more information about the weekend. What can we expect as the weekend moves on? And what can I say? For all of you right now, be at peace. Even if you are not in a space of peace, at least allow yourself the space to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Don't make yourself wrong. Don't make yourself bad. Don't make yourself feel like you're at the end of your rope. Allow yourself to realize that these emotional energies, Moon in Cancer, are moody, and that the mood shifts, right? It always shifts. I'm a living example of the mood shifting. And luckily, I knew enough not to take action on the mood. So I wish that for all of you. And if you want to have any more discussion about Pallas in your own chart, hit me up. In the meantime, have a great day, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock Pacific time, 11 a.m. East Coast time. Bye for now.